Well, happy Saturday, folks. It's the Real Catholic Kirk here. It's the 16th of March, 2024. We're live from 1 Bethlehem Plaza here. It's a relatively nice spring day here, a cooling trend for sure. While spring has 3 days and about 3.5 days left here until it officially arrives, unfortunately it's going to arrive with some colder, snowier, wetter weather. So again, just as we turn the calendar here, not entirely going to feel like spring-like for many of us. Look at the severe weather threat. We had a big uptick here this past week. In fact, Oklahoma area, I think, had near 4-inch hail, so near record-size hail there. So tornadoes, while they're still down, about 131 this year, down 51% versus last year. We do believe there's going to be a very active spring season, again, so this will definitely see an uptick in most of these categories here as we go through the March, April, May, June timeframe. Hail right now is the most in 7 years, up 132% versus last year and above average. Wind, while it's down versus last year, is still 21% above average. We expect most of these categories, probably not so much in the hail category, but tornado and wind is definitely going to be another severe active season here as we go through the spring. Look at last weekend here ending today, the 16th of March. Here in the U.S., 9.4, warmer than last year, warmest in 8 years, second hottest in 39 years. So a warm week for sure. 23% drier than last year, 20th driest in 30 years, so just a hair below average. And 84% less snow than last year, least in 8 years, 7th least in 39 years. Tale of two halves again. Very, very warm, spring-like, obviously, in the plains, Midwest, Great Lakes, East, and colder in Alaska and the Southwest, and then a little bit of pocket of cold air there in Siberia. Maps inset left of the trends versus average, and again, really wet up there in Canada. Canada was the wettest in 11 years. This week here, again, a few more days of winter, and then half of this period is spring, officially, according to the sun. 4.5 warmer than last year, 17th warmest in 39 years, so near average for the U.S. overall. But notice all that, where it's very, very warm and spring-like last week, much, much colder. So these are below average temperatures for the plains, Great Lakes, Southeast, even in the East. Got one warm day in there. But overall, a cool trend for the eastern half of the country and warm in the Northwest. 2% less snow than last year, 20th least in 39 years, so near average. And precip up about 44% versus last year, 16th wettest in 39 years. We'll watch this snowy pattern here potentially for the northern half of the northern tier of the country into the Great Lakes, Plains, and New England. Also need to watch again for that continued severe weather threat from Texas into the southeast. So again, a deep south type severe weather pattern would be this week. If we look at the 6-day snowfall trends here again, here today, not much, little system in the Four Corners area. You see some of that colder air bringing in some lake effect snow showers there. Nothing too dramatic here, but again, picking up a bit on Monday, continuing into Tuesday. So definitely going to feel more wintry-like, even though the calendar says it's spring. So again, just because the sun says it's spring, obviously it's going to feel a little bit colder and more wintry. The 6-day overall here is 45% less snow than last year on a national scale, 11th least in 39 years. But snow for 34% of us across the country here. So even though it is officially spring. Next week, hard to believe, here's a week prior to Easter here, week ending the 30th. While the U.S. overall is 2.7 warmer than last year, 18th warmest in 39 years, about average for the nation as a whole. The warm spots are really there in the Four Corners, West Texas, and much, much colder there in the plains. So it's going to be quite a shock to the system here after such warm weather, and now back to much, much below average temperatures here in the plains. Even in the east, there's a little misleading here because there are a day or two where it's milder, but then on the overall colder theme for the eastern half of the country. We'll see about all this snow and rain, but for sure in both categories we lean toward the Euro model. But leaning Euro, we'd have number one wettest week in 39 years for the nation and number one snowiest week. So probably overdone, excuse me, with all that snow in the plains, but definitely a snowy pattern for the upper plains, upper Midwest, and maybe even interior New England. Also a very severe weather pattern there back in the Missouri area, Midwest, and the East Coast. So again, keep an eye. This is the time of year for, again, with this kind of cold and clashing of air masses, we can definitely get a lot of severe weather. But a lot of rain there in the plains in the Midwest. Iowa, well, they'll take it. They need it. But again, too much of a good thing. If we just aggregate these 2-week world trends here through the 30th of March, again, you see much, much bigger change pattern here for Canada, the U.S., where it's cold. Where it was cold in Alaska and the West Coast is now warm, relatively speaking, obviously for Alaska, but well above average. A little bit of pockets of cool there across Siberia and northeast China. Rainfall map inset left shows a very wet pattern on the world scale here, just almost everywhere. So again, a typical collapsing El Nino cycle here. With that, folks, we'll just end here with, again, all the rain, and again, lots of rain across Brazil and Americas for sure. So with that, folks, have a great week, and we will be back here again this time next week.